You think you know the moment your relationship breaks. Some people say it's dramatic, like a door slamming or a glass shattering. But mine was quiet. Dead quiet. We were standing in the living room, a Sunday afternoon sun filtering through the blinds. There wasn't even a fight. Not really. I had just asked if we could talk. That's all. Just talk. She didn't even look at me when she said it. Don't touch me, Ryan. Not angry. Not sad. Cold. Like I was some stranger at the door, trying to force my way in. I froze, my hand inches from hers. I stared at her, waiting for a crack, some flicker of softness that told me she didn't mean it. But nothing came. So I left. I didn't yell. Didn't slam the door. Just walked out. 3 years together, and that was how it ended. Or so I thought. But life's cruel like that. Because sometimes the pain doesn't hit you when you expect it to. Sometimes, it circles back. And sometimes, the one who pushed you away is the one who ends up shattered. And I was about to find that out. The first few days felt like floating through fog. I stayed at my brother's place. Slept on his couch. Didn't tell him why I left. He didn't ask, he could see it on my face. The blank stare. The way I held my phone like I expected it to buzz, but it never did. She didn't call. Not a single text. I kept replaying that moment in my head, her eyes, cold as stone. Don't touch me, Ryan. The way her voice sliced right through me like I didn't even belong in my own life anymore. I checked her Instagram once. Just once. She'd posted a story, a candle at dinner, a glass of red wine, her hand brushing a napkin. No face. Just her signature rings and that damn wine. I felt sick. Was she already moving on? I tried to tell myself it didn't matter. That I'd done the right thing by walking away. But the truth? It haunted me. Because we weren't just dating. We were planning a future. I knew her routines, her family, her dog's birthday. We built a life out of late-night grocery runs and inside jokes. And now, nothing. Just silence. Until one night, exactly 2 weeks later, I got a message. Just 3 words. I need you. I stared at the screen for so long the text faded and my phone dimmed. I need you. 3 words that once would have sent me running to her without hesitation. But now. I didn't move. Was it guilt? Regret? Or was it just loneliness on her end? I typed and deleted a dozen responses. What do you need? Now you do. Why? In the end, I sent nothing. But I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying it in my head. What had changed? Was she okay? Had something happened? The next morning, I broke. I called her. It rang. Once. Twice. Then her voice, soft, shaken, Ryan. I froze. Her voice wasn't cold anymore. It was the voice I remembered from long ago, back when things were good, when we were good. I shouldn't have said what I said, she whispered. I stayed silent. I didn't mean it, she said. But you walked away, and I didn't stop you. My jaw clenched. You told me not to touch you. What was I supposed to do? There was a pause. I heard her breathing, uneven, like she was trying not to cry. I thought pushing you away would hurt less than watching you leave. I didn't say anything for a long time. Then I asked the question I'd been dreading. Why now? She hesitated, then said something I never expected. Because I'm scared. I think something's wrong with me, Ryan. I sat down on the edge of the bed, gripping the phone tighter. What do you mean, wrong with you? I asked carefully. She sniffled. I've been having these episodes. Blackouts, Headaches. I didn't tell you before because I thought it was stress or hormones or something stupid. But then last week, I forgot where I was while driving. My stomach twisted. And yesterday, she continued, her voice trembling, I collapsed in the kitchen. I woke up on the floor with my dog licking my face. My throat went dry. Have you seen a doctor? I have an appointment tomorrow. But I'm scared to go alone. A beat of silence passed between us. I didn't know how else to say it, Ryan. I didn't want to manipulate you or guilt you into coming back. I don't know who else to call. You always knew how to calm me down. You were her voice cracked, my safe place. Something shifted in my chest. Because no matter how much her cold words had hurt, this wasn't about blame anymore. This was deeper. Raw. Human. I stood up slowly and said, I'll be there. You will. I'm not promising anything about us, but I won't let you go through this alone. Her voice broke into a whisper. Thank you. I hung up and stared at the wall. I wasn't sure what I was walking into, but for the first time since I left, it wasn't about what I needed. It was about who I used to be for her, and whether I could be that person again. I hadn't been back to her place since the day I walked out. But as I stood in front of that familiar door, memories came flooding in, pizza nights on the floor, arguing about what to watch, slow mornings wrapped in the same blanket. I raised my hand to knock. Before I could, the door opened. She looked different. Not worse. Just softer. Her hair was tied up messily, no makeup, wearing one of my old hoodies I hadn't even realized she'd kept. Her eyes met mine, hesitant but searching. Hey. Hey, I said, unsure if I should smile. She stepped aside to let me in. The place looked the same plants on the windowsill, same throw pillows on the couch. But something about it felt colder, emptier. Like it had been holding its breath since I left. She gestured to the couch. Want some tea? I nodded. We moved through the routine like two people who'd lived 100 lifetimes together, and none at all. When she handed me the mug, our fingers touched. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said it. I miss you, Ryan. I looked up, my heart thudding. You miss what we had? No, she said, eyes glistening. I miss you. Even when we weren't okay, you still made me feel like I mattered. She paused. And when I told you not to touch me, it wasn't because I stopped caring. It was because I was afraid I was becoming someone you couldn't love anymore. My voice was barely a whisper. That's not how love works. She nodded. I know that now. We sat in silence, sipping tea, the air thick with unspoken history. Tomorrow, we'd face the doctor. Tonight, we were just here. Trying. The clinic smelled like antiseptic and stale coffee. We sat side by side in vinyl chairs, pretending to read old magazines. She kept tapping her foot, then stopping, then starting again. I could tell she was unraveling inside. You okay? I asked softly. She nodded too quickly. Yeah. Just nervous. I placed my hand near hers, not touching, just close enough for her to feel the choice. After a second, she reached out and laced her fingers with mine. She didn't look at me when she whispered, I don't deserve this kindness. You don't have to earn it, I said. We've both made mistakes. But right now, this isn't about the past. It's about what's happening today. She finally met my eyes, and for the first time in weeks, I saw her walls crack. Ryan, a nurse called out from the door. She stood slowly, squeezing my hand once before letting go. Wait here. I nodded. Of course. She disappeared behind the door, and suddenly the waiting room felt colder, quieter, heavier. Time didn't move the same way when someone you cared about was behind a closed door. I sat there for what felt like hours. The clock ticked. The receptionist typed. Someone coughed. Then, the door opened again. She walked out slowly, face pale, hands tucked into the sleeves of her sweater. I stood up fast. What did they say? Her voice was low. They found something. In my brain. Want Part 7? 7 ChatGPT, Part 7, what they found. My stomach dropped. Something. Like what? She looked like she was holding herself together by threads. A lesion. Near the temporal lobe. Could be a tumor. They don't know if it's benign or, worse. The words hung in the air like smoke, thick, choking, impossible to breathe through. I stepped closer. Did they say what happens next? A scan. MRI. Biopsy if needed. She swallowed hard. They said it might explain the memory loss, the blackouts, the mood swings. She looked up at me, tears brimming in her eyes. I thought I was just pushing people away because I was broken inside. Turns out, something in me might be breaking. I didn't know what to say. Nothing felt big enough. Or comforting enough. So I didn't say anything at all. I just wrapped my arms around her, and this time, she didn't flinch. She melted into me like she'd been holding her breath for weeks and could finally exhale. I'm scared, she whispered into my chest. I know, I said quietly. But you're not alone. I felt her fingers clutch the back of my shirt, trembling. And in that moment, I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit before. No matter how cold her words had been, no matter how much I'd hurt when I walked away, I still loved her. And whether this was the beginning of something healing, or the beginning of goodbye, I wasn't going anywhere. Neither of us said much in the car. She stared out the window, watching the blur of traffic lights and tired city sidewalks as if trying to make sense of everything. I kept one hand on the wheel, the other occasionally drifting toward her knee, never quite touching, but letting her know I was there. When we pulled up to her apartment, she didn't move. I don't want to go inside alone, she said, voice barely audible. You're not alone, I replied. She turned to look at me then. And in her eyes, I saw something new, not fear, not guilt, but trust. A quiet plea for me to not let go again. We went inside together. Back in the same living room where it had all fallen apart. She stood near the couch, arms crossed, and then suddenly spoke. Can I ask you something honest? Always. If this gets worse, if I'm not myself, would you stay? I walked over, slowly. Do you want me to? Her eyes filled, but she nodded. More than anything. I took a breath. Then I'll stay. For as long as you'll have me. She let out a shaky laugh. Even after what I said. Especially after that, I said. Because now I understand why. She stepped forward and placed her forehead gently against my chest. We stayed like that for a long time. There were no promises. No declarations. Just two people standing in the wreckage of something real, trying to rebuild, one quiet moment at a time. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. The days that followed weren't dramatic. There were no tearful movie-style reunions. No grand gestures. Just small, quiet things that meant everything. I started spending nights on her couch, at first to be close in case something happened. But over time, it became more than that. I cooked while she rested. We watched old shows, even if she dozed off halfway through. I drove her to follow-ups, filled prescriptions, kept track of dates and scans. Sometimes she'd wake up disoriented. Scared. She'd forget what day it was or what she was doing before she sat down. And every time, I was there to remind her. One night, as I was folding a blanket and getting ready to sleep on the couch, she called out softly from her room. Ryan? Yeah. Can you sleep here tonight? With me? It wasn't about romance. It was safety. Familiarity. Warmth in the face of something cold and unpredictable. I climbed into bed next to her, fully clothed, and she curled into my side like she used to. I could feel the weight of everything she was carrying, physically and emotionally, pressing against me. "I used to think you'd leave if I got too hard to love," she whispered. "I used to think I was easy to walk away from," I whispered back. Neither of us had been right. And maybe we never had the perfect relationship. Maybe we'd messed up more times than we could count. But here, in the dark, sharing silence and second chances, it felt like something whole again. Not what we were before. But maybe something stronger. The phone rang at 9:17 a.m. We were sitting at the table, both pretending to care about a breakfast neither of us had touched. She stared at the screen like it might bite her. "Unknown number," she said quietly. My heart thudded once, hard. "Answer it," I said, trying to sound steadier than I felt. She did. "Hello." Her face went blank, listening. I watched every twitch in her brow, every flicker in her eyes. The call only lasted about a minute. When she hung up, she didn't look at me right away. Then she said it. "It's benign." I blinked. "Wait, what?" She finally smiled, a soft, stunned, tearful smile. "It's not cancer. It's a benign growth. They still want to monitor it and maybe remove it, but it's not life-ending." And just like that, the breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding finally escaped. I stood up, walked around the table, and pulled her into the kind of hug that says we survived something. She buried her face in my chest and started to cry. Deep, relieved, almost disbelieving sobs. We didn't talk for a while. There was nothing to say that hadn't already been felt in the silence between us. When she finally pulled back, her eyes red but shining, she whispered, "Thank you for not walking away again." I smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "You're stuck with me now." And for the first time in what felt like years, we laughed. Together. The days after the diagnosis felt lighter. Not perfect, there were still appointments, medications, the looming decision about whether to surgically remove the growth, but something had shifted. The fear no longer ruled every room we entered. She started painting again. Small canvases at first, mostly sunsets and oceans. I noticed she used more color now, less gray. I asked her once what changed. She smiled. Hope. We still had hard talks. About boundaries. About how we'd hurt each other. About what we were now. We weren't rushing into labels or promises. But we were present. Intentional. And that meant more than any title. One night, while washing dishes together, she nudged me gently and said, "You know, I kept wearing this hoodie because it still smelled like you." I glanced down at the faded navy hoodie she still wore like armor. "You could have just asked for another one." "I didn't think I had the right," she said softly. I dried my hands and looked at her. "You always did. Even when you didn't believe it." She reached for my hand. And for the first time since everything fell apart, she said it. "I love you, Ryan." I didn't hesitate. I never stopped. Spring came early that year. The snow melted faster than usual, and tulips pushed through the earth like they were determined to bloom no matter what had tried to bury them. We were a little like that. Her surgery was scheduled for mid-April. The doctor said it was routine, but still, anything involving the brain wasn't routine to us. We talked about risks. About recovery. About how she'd need help for weeks afterward. "I don't want to be a burden," she murmured one night, curled beside me in bed. I looked her in the eyes. "You're not." "I mean it," she said. "If you want to walk away after this, I'd understand." I shook my head slowly. "You think I came back to walk away again?" She was quiet. So I continued. "I didn't come back out of guilt. I came back because I remembered who we were before the silence. Before fear got in the way. She blinked back tears. I love you, I said. Not the easy version. The real one. The one that stays even when things get hard. Especially when they do. And right then, she nodded, not because she believed it fully yet, but because she wanted to. That was enough. The day of the surgery came. It was long. Tense. I paced hospital floors for 6 hours, clenching her favorite hoodie in my hands like it was some kind of talisman. When the doctor came out, he smiled. She's okay. I didn't realize I'd been crying until I laughed and wiped my face. 3 weeks later, we were sitting on the porch together. She still had healing to do. Her words sometimes came slow. But her eyes were alive again. She looked at me and asked, "Do you ever wish we could go back to the beginning?" I smiled. "No, why not?" "Because we found each other again," I said, reaching for her hand. "And this time, we're not letting go." She leaned on my shoulder, and we watched the sun dip low on the horizon. Her cold words had once cut deep. But what we built in their aftermath. That was real. That was love. And this was just the beginning.